Shalom, everybody from Israel. Today I'm going to take things a little bit more seriously speaking. However, the VFI News is here to stay. And I've got news for you because the Houthis are up to no good trouble again in Yemen against Saudi Arabia, our neighbor. Again, also, we are hearing about Israel being calling an apartheid state, but one of our Arab members of the Knesset said, no, that's a bunch of baloney. Good for him. And then, of course, we have cooperation between countries that are tackling the Iranian threat. And guess who that's with? Our newfound friends, Bahrain. Some of you only say Bahrain. So stay tuned for the VFI News. So at the top of the news, this is what I've got to share with you. 12 were hurt as a drone targeted the Saudi Arabian airport by Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis who are being blamed. And there has been a crisis going on down south of us. The Saudi-led coalition fighting in Yemen said Thursday that 12 people were wounded in a drone attack on an airport in the southern Saudi region of Abha near the kingdom's border with Yemen. Now, Yemen has been at civil war and tens of thousands of people have been dying. Saudi Arabia has been at war with Yemen since 2015 and fighting against the Iranian-backed Houthis who overran the capital and ousted the government then that was in power. On Tuesday, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Saudi King Salman. The White House said the president and king discussed Iranian-enabled attacks by the Houthis against civilian targets in Saudi Arabia. Biden underscored U.S. commitment in supporting Saudi Arabia in the defense of its people and territory from such attacks. Well, that's a big question because right now the U.S. is showing the weakest profile that I can ever remember since I've been born when it comes to defending our allies. I just hope that what he's saying is true. Let me just say, sadly, the war has killed tens of thousands of people, both fighters and civilians, and spawned the world's worst humanitarian aid crisis. They're talking about maybe 50% of the population facing starvation. You see, Genesis 12:3, I will bless those that bless thee, Israel, and I will curse those that curse thee, a lesson yet to be learned by many nations. Something else we need to take notice of, because we were just in London, actually, and first time in 2 years, and I loved being back there. Unauthorized bus stop signs describing Israel as apartheid state appear in London. Posters labeling Israel an apartheid state have been illegally placed in bus stops around London, England, the Jewish Chronicle reported. The posters resemble dictionary entries with the word apartheid. Well, anyhow, it goes on to accuse Israel of apartheid as they used to accuse South Africa of it. And the posters also say usage, Amnesty International called for Israel to end its system of apartheid against the Palestinian people. Well, first of all, Amnesty International, what about the regimes and the dictatorships and the jihadism that has been launched against Christians in countries like Nigeria? What about the civil war in Syria that killed over 500,000 people? And what about the Iranian president who is responsible for over 5,000 Iranians being hung and being executed, who's now President Ibrahim Raisi? Where is your big mouth, Amnesty International? Your credibility is flunked. Okay, well, the full-length ads, which have been noted at bus stops in northern London District Chalk Farm, were not authorized, just so you know, by the Transport Ministry of London. And Psalm 101, verse 5 says, whoever slanders his neighbor secretly, I will destroy. Whoever has a haughty look and an arrogant heart, I will not endure. So much for all of you at Amnesty International. Now, the interesting thing on the other side of the coin is our own member of the Knesset, Mansour Abbas, said Israel is not an apartheid state. He's in the Knesset. Ram party leader MK Mansour Abbas rejected the claim that the state of Israel was guilty of the crime of apartheid within its sovereign borders. Quote, I would not call it apartheid, he said. He defended his position by pointing out the obvious that he leads an Israeli Arab party that is a member of the government's coalition. Quote, I am within the coalition, he added, that the option also exists for Israeli Arabs to be ministers in the government. So you have it right there from one of our own Arabs in the Israeli government Knesset. Yes, sirree. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Well, some really, really smiley great news for all of you, because we have a new friend in the Gulf Arab states called Bahrain. Some of you can't even say Bahrain. Bahrain, that's right. And they have become friends with Israel. Bahrain's foreign minister, Abdul Latif bin Rashid Al Zayani, praised Prime Minister Naftali Bennet's historic visit to his country on Tuesday. Quote, the two sides discussed political and security developments in the region and the challenges facing its countries, including the Iranian nuclear file, terrorism, religious extremism, poverty, as well as social issues. They underlined the importance of intensifying joint efforts to address regional challenges and threats, maintain stability and security in the Middle East, and enhance regional and international peace. He added, quote, Prime Minister Bennett invited His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister to visit the State of Israel, an invitation which was accepted and with the visit anticipated to take place in the near future. Welcome, our friends from Bahrain. Al-Zayani said when asked by Israel National News that the Palestinian issue is still there on the table. And he also said, in once again welcoming the success of this visit, I look forward to new horizons of cooperation, understanding, and opportunity for our countries and our peoples. And finally, I just want to tell you, we should continue praying for the increase of the Abrahamic Accords. The fruit is very good, and it shows that there are those who are willing to be sheep nations, not goat nations. All right. Our new song. Well, maybe not so new. The Lord gave it to Batia many years ago, and we're going to release to you a new website along with visionforisrael.com. We will have a new website any day now called BarryandBatiaSiegel.com, and that will incorporate the music creative side of life and our ministry. And you can also go to YouTube and see the song via the link HaShomer, which is He who keeps Israel so neither slumbers nor sleeps. And so I'm just so excited to release this website finally to all of you and encourage you to sign up for more music. Now, Bennett says religion in the Middle East is no longer needs to be defined by brutality and extremism. And so when the Israeli Prime Minister went to Bahrain, he spoke to the students there during his visit to the country. And quote Bennett, this is what he said. I have come here to talk about the future, your future, my people's future, our shared future, a future that chooses cooperation over conflict, hope over hostility, and friendship over fear, a future that is dependent on all the people sitting in this room. There once was a tent. That was the first home of all of us, the tent of Abraham. Abraham, you know, he was not your average leader. He was a man of God. He was a man of the world. He wasn't just a family man, but he was a businessman, a man who was both deeply attached to his faith, but at the same time open to the world. Everyone was welcome in Abraham's tent. It was wide open. I think it is remarkable that the historic agreements between Israel and the Arab nations are called the Abrahamic Accords, or the Abraham Accords. When I became prime minister, no, I don't mean Barry became prime minister, although that is an idea, but when I became prime minister, Bennett said, I was asked what I thought about the Abraham Accords, if I planned to keep using this name, and I said, there could be no better name. And isn't that true, folks? What a wonderful thing to know that our father Abraham gives us that faith. So come and see for yourself what Israel is all about. The Israeli people welcome you with open arms. The Middle East is changing, and I am convinced that Israel's growing friendships with Bahrain and other countries in the region are a leading force to the profound of change. Together, we are creating a new reality in the Middle East that will greatly benefit our people, our countries, and the entire region. Finally, he said, we must seize the momentum of the historic Abraham Accords. We must make the most of the opportunity we've been given. I think that's such a sweet story. We should tell our kids as well. Well, now for the evil side of the force and the jealousy that's ranting and raving in Iran. Oh, wee, ho. Oh, 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 wee, ho. Tens of thousands of Iranians on motorcycles and in cars celebrated the 43rd anniversary of the Islamic Revolution last Friday. In 1979, the pro-Western Shah, King Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was deposed, and the powerful cleric Ayatollah Coca-Cola Khomeini became the country's supreme leader. According to the Ynet report, revelers attended the celebrations in their vehicles due to COVID-19 restrictions forbidding public gatherings. Did you know that about half of their own government that sits in the parliament all caught COVID recently? That's interesting. Well, Ynet said and added that Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi spoke before last Friday's prayer, saying the country was never dependent on the ongoing negotiations with world powers in Vienna, Austria, regarding its nuclear program. Quote, he hung over 5,000 Iranians. We hang our hopes in the east, west, north, and south of our country. We have never hung our hopes in Vienna or New York. The report noted some attendees of the speech that chanted death to America, death to Israel, and death to England. Welcome, England, to our new fold. This is the first time I heard that they're calling for death to England. Welcome to our company. Now you know what it feels like. Well, finally, and my last story today is Dutch plan to force universities to reveal ties to Israel, which now has been blasted as anti-Semitic. The chief rabbi of the Netherlands has slammed an order that forces Dutch universities to reveal ties to Israel and Jewish institutions, saying it reeks of anti-Semitism. I agree, it does reek of anti-Semitism. And the Netherlands, which has been a great friend of Israel, I'm surprised. However, on universities, I'm not surprised. The move came about after a pro-Palestinian advocacy group, the Rights Forum, placed a Freedom of Information request to compel universities to disclose institutional ties with Israeli universities, institutions, and businesses, and with organizations that propagate support for the State of Israel. Guess who's on that list? Organizations such as the Central Jewish Board of the Netherlands, the Anti-Defamation League, and the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, as well as Elbit, the company, B'nai B'rith, and Christians for Israel, dear friends of ours. They're coming under this classification of being pro-Israel because they are pro-Israel. Well, the clear inference is that some shadowy Zionist Jewish cabal is operating in the Dutch university system. This is nothing but anti-Semitism, and it comes no surprise to this group's reputation. And this has been told to us by the chief rabbi of the Netherlands, Benjamin Jacobs. Quote, it reminds us that most mayors cooperated during the occupation to pass on the names of their Jewish citizens to the Germans. Well, we need to reverse this curse over the Netherlands and all of Europe, and you have a right to choose which way you want to believe and go. But your choices have consequences. And I would appreciate if you send me your comments to the VFI News, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. God bless you and shalom from Israel.